All right. Opened up. And they're coming.
I just hit the taskbar on my screen so I can see there's 10 people there. I don't know if that shows up for you.
Of course, because I'm the host and you're the co-host. That's why you can see it. You're special.
There you go.
Penny saying good morning to you.
Good morning. Oh, look in chat.
I can chat.
Oh, good morning.
Yes.
Oh, good morning, Candace. Look, I know both of those people.
You do, I know.
I'm feeling the pressure already. Let me sit up straight.
There, I was going to say posture.
Good morning.
Kenzie.
Good morning, Kenzie and May. So we're at 13 participants right now.
I'm not letting you be co-host next time. I'll find another way.
I have a cute little joke if that's appropriate.
I don't know until you
No,
tell it.
no, but just if you want. No, it was my
Sure.
5-year-old. It was my 5-year-old nephew. So he's older now. So my 5-year-old nephew, he was learning about dinosaurs in school. So he would, whenever I would see him every Sunday, we had family dinner. So I would go to my parents, my sister would be there, my nephew would be there. So we were there, just hanging out before the meal, and he was like, Uncle Greg, I know all these kinds of dinosaurs. So he would list off like all of these names of dinosaurs, and many of them I had never even heard of. So he could have been making them up, although I think at 5 it's a little young to make them up. So that's fine, etc. So he continues on and he said, Uncle Greg, if you were a dinosaur, I know which one you would be. And I'm thinking, okay, where is this going? And for those of you who don't know me, like I'm a runner and I'm a little quirky and, I'm a little funny, a few other things. And he said, Uncle, and I was like, okay, Garrett, what would it be? And he said, you would be Dino Bore because you bore me to death.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. It was so funny. My mother laughed hysterically. My father, my mother and father were laughing hysterically for about 20 minutes.
Oh.
So Dino
I
Bore.
was not expecting that.
So he told me Dino Bore.
Oh.
So anyways, I thought it was
cute.
Good
sense of humor.
I thought it was cute.
He's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah, absolutely.
A very good sense of humor.
So I thought that was cute. So it's very clean.
Very clean. Very appropriate.
So I thought it was funny.
Okay, we'll just give a couple of more minutes because it's Friday and people are anticipating the lovely snow that comes almost every Friday now.
It is interesting while we wait, it seems that whenever we have a storm, it's always the same day of the week every winter. Yeah. So every winter, it's always one day that we get snow every.
Yeah, Monday or Wednesday. This year, it's Friday. Check, so we got 10:04. Okay, I think I shall give it to exactly 1 more minute and then we will get started.
Perfect.
We lost our power last Friday. That was our fun on the non-storm Friday.
Yes, it was windy last Friday.
It was, yeah. Okay, I think we will get going. I don't see any more people coming on. All right then, so good morning and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the second in the series of 4 webinars focused on business rebuilding, which is being offered through our Tourism Reactivation of Industry program. This program enables tie-ins to provide support for industry through programs and webinars such as this one, and is part of our partnership with Tourism Nova Scotia. My name is Lynn McDonough Hughes with Tie-ins, and I am pleased to introduce this morning's session. We would like to, begin by acknowledging the traditional and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq First Nation. We do this to reaffirm our commitment to improving and understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their culture. Today's topic, employee engagement and service excellence, is about commitment and engagement of our workforce and how to instill loyalty and appreciation by giving that extra touch that provides excellence in service within the team and to our valued guests. Our presenter is Greg Thompson, for those who do not know him. He is an energetic speaker with 20 years of industry experience, including operational and managerial roles in several downtown Halifax hotels. Greg has also taught part-time for 15 years at St. Mary's University in organizational behavior and 4 years at Mount St. Vincent University in tourism and hospitality, all of which make him the perfect facilitator for this series. Greg, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Over to you now.
Thank you very much. And I will try very hard to make sure that all of you don't think I'm also a dino bore. So with that being said, the theme of the first session, which was 2 weeks ago, was quality and caring, and how caring is important in making sure that people have a good experience. So caring again is the theme. As Lynn suggested, we're looking at engagement and commitment of employees and how that transcends into caring. If we look at my slide deck, the first thing that we're considering is effectiveness and commitment. So effectiveness of the team and the organization, and commitment of the team or the people who are there. So to start off, how do we get effectiveness? So how do we get organizational effectiveness? So that can simply mean, is the organization, your business, etc., is it meeting its goals? So whatever goals you have for yourself, are you meeting your goals? Are you meeting your potential? In order to do so, there's 5 points or considerations that will allow us or allow you to do that. The first point is open systems. Open systems means, what is your ability to adapt to the external environment? Open systems are things outside of your control. So, for example, if there was a new competitor, if there was a new government regulation, how would that allow you to adapt? Let's pretend for a moment that I am a tourism operator and I own a coffee shop somewhere in the province. And let's pretend, if we look at open systems, that the government passes legislation that bans caffeinated beverages on June 1st. So if my organization is effective, and if we have open systems or the ability to adapt, how can our business or my coffee shop adjust if caffeinated beverages are banned or not allowed? So are we able to evolve? Can we shift to something else? Can we go to smoothies? What is it that we can do to adapt? And I'm sure all of you appreciate that adaptation is highly relevant of late, because of course we're coming out of a pandemic, and hopefully we'll see a lot of positive changes on March 21 when things really start to open up. The next component of effectiveness is learning, and learning is about the ability of your business to use and retain knowledge. So do you have things documented? What is the information that's in people's heads, and is that in a place that it could be used and stored by others? So there's no gaps there's no gaps. So think of yourselves for a moment. How many times have you been, at work in some capacity, and maybe someone is on vacation or they're out sick or they're not there, and someone says, how do we do this? And the answer is, I'm not sure, so and so does it and they're not here. So for a business to be effective with learning, it means that you're able to record, document, use, store knowledge. If knowledge is bad, are you able to get rid of it? So, here's a very simple example. If you think of McDonald's for a moment, if you think of a Big Mac, like, do they have a recipe, or do the people who work in all the restaurants in the kitchen, are they able to interpret that recipe of how to make a Big Mac on their own? So having a recipe, having it documented, having it shared, having expectations around it means that the organization has learning. It also means that the organization is evolving, so that knowledge base is continuing to grow and grow and grow. This is important as well, because if one of the pillars of our business is caring and people, how can we make sure that they have the information they need to be successful? The next consideration is HPWP, and that stands for High Performance Work Practices. So in very layman's terms, are your processes efficient? So is the way that you clean a room efficient? Is the way that you seat a guest? Is the way you take a drink order? Is the way people buy tickets or make reservations at your facility, is that efficient? And are you evolving and trying to always improve your processes? I apologize that I'm sort of in a fast food vein today, but when I was a kid, and unfortunately I'm in my 40s now, but when I was a kid, if you went to Tim Hortons and ordered a large double, the person would make your coffee, and they would pour the milk out of a plastic bag. So I don't know if any of you remember when milk was in plastic bags, you take scissors and cut off the corner and pour it. So if you ordered a large double, the person would pour the milk from a pitcher with a bag of milk in it into your coffee, use a spoon and stir it. And of course, now if you were to buy a large double today, you would notice that they have the Sure Shot machine, that they put the cup under the machine, they press a button, and it always disperses the perfect amount. So that's an example of how their processes are more efficient. So think about the processes in your business, and are they as good as they can be? Or if they're not, are you at least trying to improve them all the time, trying to embrace new technologies, new ideas, new ways to make this happen? The next point that you can see there is stakeholder management. So stakeholder management is, how do you balance the needs of everyone that has a stake in your business? So that could be your financiers, that could be yourself, that could be owners, that could be the employees, that could be the neighbors, the customers, partners. So how are you able to balance the varying needs of those parties? So this particular one is interesting because with stakeholder management, in many instances, you can't make everyone happy all the time, but do you at least consider who your stakeholders are and what they're hoping to get from you, so that you can be effective by balancing their needs? And then the last one, as you can see, is sustainability. So sustainability really is about allowing your business to continue forever. So what are the triggers or encumbrances that might not make that happen? So sustainability could be profitability. It could be your ability to find employees. It could be having employees once they're there that they want to stay. It could that when customers come, they have a good experience and they want to come back, they want to return. So what are the elements that will allow your business to sustain forever? So if you want your business to sustain forever, you have that ability. So when a business is effective, they balance these 5 things. So you can see open systems, learning, high performance work practices, stakeholder management, and sustainability. So this is allowing your business to meet its goals. So let's dig a little further. So let's think about the employee now. And so if the employee is committed, they will also be engaged. So if the employee is committed, they will also be engaged. So you can see here by the picture that everyone there looks super, super happy. So in order to have happy, satisfied employees, there's 5 things that you need to make this happen. So let's go through these one by one. So here's the first one here is shared values. So do your employees and the business, do you believe in the same stuff? Is your sort of moral compass or ethical compass similar, that your definition and right or wrong are the same? So do you believe in the same stuff, and do you align with those values? This, of course, can also be tricky, especially if you're recruiting new people now, because of course there are definitely recruitment challenges. And there's also situations where, of course, we're all perfect, so we would never do this. But there are situations where when people are applying, sometimes they misrepresent themselves to either be how they want to be, how they feel you want them to be, or the truth. So if you're trying to find people who share the core values that you have, how do you make sure that you find people with those? And how do you safeguard yourself if people tell white lies or misrepresent themselves? So shared values, do you believe in this, in the same stuff? The next one is trust. So trust can mean accountability. Trust can mean, do people follow through on promises? So trust can be, so if someone asks you to do something, do you follow through? So maybe I work for one or all of you, and let's pretend that my birthday is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. It's not, but let's pretend that it is. If you have a process in place that if you want a day off, you have to fill out a form or send an email or do something in order to get your birthday off. So let's pretend that the schedule comes out every Thursday for the following week. So if I follow the process and request the day off, I trust that I'm going to get it. So then when the schedule comes out and I don't actually have that day off, then trust is gone. So what can we do so employees trust us, and what can we do so we trust them? So in order for people to be happy, there has to be some level of trust. And trust, trust can also be that people follow through. Trust can be that if somebody does something wrong, that there's a consequence. Trust could be based on values, that because our values are similar, we believe in similar outcomes. The next one that you can see there is justice and support. So justice and support is about fairness or perceived fairness. So if there's rules within your organization, are they applied fairly? So if I'm late and I get a consequence, and maybe someone else is late, maybe Lynn is late and she doesn't, that's not fair. So people perceive fairness. So how can you ensure that there's fairness with, with scheduling, maybe with, with discipline, with praise? So how can you ensure that there's fairness throughout the organization and throughout the business? So if people perceive that there's fairness, i.e. justice and support, that means that people will be happier and satisfied and engaged. The next one, of course, that you can see is employee involvement. So employee involvement means that employees are consulted in decisions that might impact them. So that doesn't mean that they make the decision. That means, certainly others can make the decision, but that means that input is sought. This is certainly valuable if we reflect for a moment on organizational effectiveness. So if we think about learning and high performance work practices, maybe the employees who are in line positions have a better indication of what processes work and what don't, so they can have valuable input to help you improve. So also with learning, they have knowledge. So how do you make sure that it's shared and used, etc.? Or if knowledge is poor, how do you make sure that it's, de-learned, if that's actually a word? So again, employees are happier when they're involved in decisions that impact them. That doesn't mean every decision, but it means that it's certainly considered. Think of yourself for a moment. Are you happier when you're consulted, or are you happier when someone tells you what to do? Maybe the answer is it depends. However, if it's a decision maybe that's non-routine, it's new, it's a change, employee involvement is definitely helpful. The last one, as you can see here, is organizational comprehension. Organizational comprehension. So what that actually means is, does leadership understand what everybody does? So does leadership understand what everybody does? So do they understand the challenges? Do they understand, the positives and the negatives? Do they understand, if there's any constraints so that they can support? So I've certainly worked in situations where I felt that my boss had no idea what I was actually doing. So do you understand what all your employees do? And if so, that will allow them to be more satisfied. So again, the first step of commitment or satisfaction. So this is called organizational commitment, and the parts are shared values, trust, justice and support, employee involvement, and organizational comprehension. And again, the hope with this is these things will allow people to be happy, which will give us caring, which will mean your business will win and your customer will win too. So let's keep on moving on this vein. So if people are happy and satisfied, and I love this image, by the way, if people are happy and satisfied, it also means that they're more willing to embrace empowerment. So if we want to make a difference for your guest, if we want to make their stay excellent, we want to turn it into an experience, we want to show caring, we want things to be above and beyond, empowerment will allow us to do so. So satisfaction and commitment is also empowerment, and here's some ways that we can achieve it. So if we look at empowerment, so here's some of the parts. So the first one is self-determination. So think of your employees. So let's pretend you're trying to empower your team. These are ways that you can get it. So the first one is self-determination. So do they have the confidence and the desire to actually want to do something? So for example, maybe you're an accommodation business, maybe somebody is checking in. Part of the check-in process is you ask for a piece of picture ID. So when you ask for a piece of picture ID, maybe I'm working at your facility today, it's a Friday, it's a weekend, hopefully it doesn't snow. So if you have incoming guests, they can have a great time. So let's say that I'm checking in and I look at that picture ID and I notice when I read your driver's license that your birthday is today. So I notice that your birthday is today. So if your employee has self-determination, they actually want to run with that. So how many of your employees, for example, will recognize the birthday and want to do something for the guest, or even, at minimum say happy birthday, but do something for the guest? Or are they having a busy day, they're understaffed? It's a challenging time. It's certainly, a lot of people are working in roles that aren't their normal roles. A lot of businesses don't have as many employees as they would like because of labor challenges, but do the employees actually want to do something? So self-determination is, do they actually want to make a difference? Do they want to go above and beyond? So that's the first one. The next one you can see is meaning. So do they understand the significance? Do they understand the significance of what this does? So again, meaning could mean caring. So are they showing caring, which will elevate the quality of the experience, which will elevate the quality of the service? Do they recognize that if it's a guest birthday and maybe, I'm not sure what the capabilities are within the business, but, can we send up something to the room? Could it be a piece of cake, or, could it be a bottle of wine, or, could we just get a card? Is there something we can do? So do they understand enough that, hey, like this will make a difference? So do they care? Do they want to care? Do they want to make a difference? Do they understand? So this is almost like a mental state. So do they believe in empowerment, and do they believe that they want to make a difference? So that's meaning. The next one is competence. The next one is competence. So this is, do they have the skills necessary to execute it? So if I'm working the front desk, and maybe I'm not able to gather a piece of birthday cake. Maybe it requires that somebody runs out to a store. Maybe it requires, if you're a restaurant, that somebody has to ask for it or prepare a plate. But, so do I have the skills to make it happen? Do I have the skills? I have a great example, by the way. So I worked in a hotel in downtown Halifax a long time ago. And this was a great story. But we had a weekly manager's reception sort of cocktail party. So what would happen is on Wednesday nights for 90 minutes, guests could come to the lobby and have a complimentary glass of wine or a beer, and there'd always be some some snacky kind of appetizer food, whether it's hors d'oeuvres or cheese and crackers or any of that kind of stuff. So I was there on the schedule, so I went. And one of the things that we did, so the guests enjoyed it because they got they got a free beverage, etc. But in the hotel, we did it because we considered to be a focus group. So while we're there chatting with people, we would ask them, why did you choose the hotel? If there's something we're not doing well, what could we improve? So we tried to do it to gather information. So accelerate the story. So I'm there talking to someone, and a lot of you don't know me that well, but I can talk to anybody. So I'm talking to someone, and there's a gentleman, and he doesn't have any shoes on. So he's in the lobby of the hotel with no shoes on, which to me is a little peculiar. So he doesn't have any shoes. So I'm there, mingling around the room, having a chat. He's, he's having a beer and, having a few snacks. And then finally, maybe after 10 minutes of talking to him, I asked him, I said, I know that our housekeeping team is award winning, but may I ask you why you don't have any shoes on today? And he said, well, it's a funny story. He said, I normally stay at the Delta, which isn't there anymore, but I normally stay at the Delta, and I stayed here because the Delta was sold out. So here I am, and I flew in from Toronto this afternoon. I had 2 meetings with the government this afternoon. I have one tomorrow morning, and then I'm flying home. So I just brought a carry-on. I only brought 1 pair of shoes. I said, okay, that seems reasonable. He said, I have very minimal stuff, 1 pair of shoes. And I was like, fine. And he said, I wasn't paying attention. It's raining today, as you know. And when I was coming up the hill from meeting with the government, I didn't pay attention. I hit like a divot or a grate in the sidewalk, and I actually snapped the heel off my only pair of shoes. So I got back, I have 1 pair of shoes, it's raining, I'm going up the hill. I didn't realize Halifax is so hilly. I made it back to the hotel. I'm going to my room, walking by, there's a cleaner was in the hallway, and this lady asked him how his day was. And he said, oh, fine, yourself. And then, that was that. And then she did a follow-up question by saying, hey, like, your body language is telling me, that maybe it's not fine. Is there anything I can do? And he said, well, yeah, I told her that I'm here from Toronto. I have 1 pair of shoes. I just broke them. What should I do? And she's like, give me the shoes. So she took the shoes. So that cleaner, having competence, she took the shoes. She took them to the maintenance department. The maintenance department tacked the heel back on because that's what was broken. Polished them up. And actually, about 20 minutes later, the maintenance person brought the shoes back to the guest. So again, the competence. So if you think of, this definition with all this stuff, so if you think of that lady, so she wanted to make a difference. She cared. So she knew this guy had no shoes, and she could just tell something was wrong. So, she was intuitive. She could tell something was wrong, and she had the competence, so she had the skills to do it. She also had the confidence to know that if she took that shoes to maintenance, like, would they fix the shoe, or would they say, hey, I'm too busy, go away? And then, of course, the last part of this is impact. So impact is they understand that what this means to the guest, so, or the visitor, or the traveler, or the restaurant goer. So she understood, or people need to understand that this has an impact. So this is positive. So I didn't do a follow-up because, of course, I moved on from that hotel, and I went to do something else. But I'm assuming, based on that story, when that gentleman goes to the city, he probably always stays at that hotel because it's something so simple, but they fixed his shoes. So again, what triggered her to do it? Self-determination, meaning competence, and impact. So in order for people to be empowered, generally they have to be satisfied or they don't want to go above and beyond. And these are the steps to allow it to do so. So, does your team, do they want to? Do they care? Do they have the confidence and skills? Do they understand what it means to the guest? Do they understand what it means to you? Do they understand what it means to the business? So moving on, or keep going. So if people are happy, which again is your staff being satisfied, committed, engaged, that can also mean team effectiveness. So that means your team itself is meeting its goals. So not only is the business meeting its goals, but the team is meeting its goals. So if we look at team effectiveness, there's a bunch of parts of this. So again, so look at the picture. I love this image. They look super happy. They're probably, in current age, but I'm not cool, as you may or may not know, but they're probably doing a TikTok video there. So in order to have team effectiveness, again, there's some things that need to be considered to allow for the team and the people within the team to meet their goals, be satisfied, be successful, be happy, etc. So let's sort of look at these and see where it goes. So the first two parts of team effectiveness, the first part is environment. So environment is anything outside of the team's control that could impact their ability to be successful. So anything outside of their control. So I'm sure you can see on the screen there. So the first part is rewards. So are there rewards in place that encourage the behavior that you want? And I appreciate that not all rewards have to be financial, but are there things that are done so people are recognized for the behavior that you want? So, are there random draws for people who get positive reviews or positive comments? Are there incentives of some kind? Do people get, preferred vacation time off or preferred days off for doing the right thing? So things outside of the team or employees' control that can impact their effectiveness are rewards. And this next thing is structure. So how is your business organized? So if you have a small team, is everyone on the same level? Are there layers? If you have a larger team, does the structure make sense? And I appreciate, again, that many businesses look different now than they did 2 years ago because of the pandemic, because of labor shortages, etc. But do the rewards and do the structure make sense for what your business is to allow your employees and your teams to be successful? The next component of this that you can also see there, is design. So how is the team, put together or designed, and does it actually make sense? So how is the team put together? So the first component that you can see there is size. So is the team a reasonable size? And if you were going to ask me, what is the reasonable size? The answer is, unfortunately, it depends. If you sort of read stuff, they're suggesting that the ideal team size is 8, but I think 8 depends upon how new or seasoned the employees are, whether they can work independently or not, whether they empower themselves or they need direction. So is the team that you have, is it an appropriate size? So if people are competent, the team can be large. If people are new, maybe the team is small because people need a higher level of attention from you to allow them to meet their goals. So the first one is size. So is your team an appropriate size? The next one that you can see is interdependence. So if we have a team, that means that the people on your workforce, etc., they have a level of interdependence with each other. So does the level of interdependence work? So for example, a type of interdependence is pooled interdependence, which means that we're sharing a resource. So it means we're sharing a resource. So you don't know this, or maybe some of you do, but when I started in hotels, I was actually a teenager and I cleaned hotel rooms. So I actually started cleaning hotel rooms, and a couple of unintended consequences of that is I actually really like cleaning. And I still, it's 20 some odd years later, and I still clean my home like a hotel room. Maybe a detriment of that, of course, is that when I travel and I can't turn off my housekeeping eye, sometimes I can't relax because I see what I see. And I'm sure a lot of you are the same way. However, to get to the point of pooled interdependence is that when I was there, I was in a larger hotel and we had 3 cleaners. We use the term room attendant. We had 3 room attendants per floor. And when I arrived, there was 1 vacuum cleaner that the 3 of us had to share. So it impacted our ability to be successful because sometimes that's a really busy role and timeliness is very important. And if you have to wait for for someone to finish with a vacuum, maybe that might mean that you don't vacuum as thoroughly, maybe you get pressure, maybe people make snide remarks. So if you're sharing a resource, can that work successfully? Or do you, like, for example, eventually we all got our own vacuum, but from the first 2 months that I worked at that hotel, I shared a vacuum. The second type of interdependence is sequential. So we rely on each other in some sequence based upon processes or workflow. So let's pretend I work in a restaurant. So if I'm a server in a restaurant, I'm reliant on, if there's a host or hostess, for somebody to seat the guests and give them menus. I come over and take the order. I'm reliant upon the kitchen to make the meal to the specifications with the special requests, etc., dietary constraints, for me to deliver it to the customer to give them a good experience. So sometimes that sequential interdependence can, if it works well, it's fine. But if it doesn't, it can certainly hinder the ability to make the customer happy and for the team to meet its goals. So if I'm a server and the kitchen is backed up or slow, or somebody called in sick, or maybe whoever is actually cooking that day doesn't acknowledge or recognize all the special requests that people have, it can certainly impact our ability to be successful. And the last thing that you can see there is coordination. So coordination is, how do we as a group coordinate our work? How do we coordinate with each other? So when I think of coordination, I almost think of like 5 C's. So the first one is communication. So how do we communicate? Do we have normal channels? Do we email? Do we talk? Do we have a texting group? So when there's information that needs to be shared, how do we share it? Coordination, again, same word, but how is work coordinated? How is it assigned? Who does what? Next one is cooperation. How do we work together? How are we set up to work together? How can we make sure that people want to support each other, which is cooperation. The next one is comfort. So how can we provide comfort to each other? So there are situations when maybe someone's having a bad day. So how can you support people? So how can you lift them up? So maybe if somebody's having a bad day, how can you elevate them, or try to make them happier, or take some stresses off their plate so that they can be successful? And the last C that I would consider with coordination is conflict resolution. So if for some reason something goes wrong and there is conflict, can it be handled in a productive way? So if there's a disagreement, does the team have a way to deal with conflict so that it can be successful? So that's the design. So that's how the team is put together. The last 2 parts of this that you can see are states, which is sort of the beliefs of the employee or the beliefs of the team. So we've talked about some of this stuff already, but for the team to be effective, there needs to be some level of trust. So trust needs to be based on values, on past experiences. Are people holding each other accountable? Are people following through on, what, promises that they make? If somebody says they're going to do something, do they in fact do it? The next one that you can see there is cohesion. So cohesion, like glue, is, does the team want to be tight, and do they want to stay a team? So are people happy? Do they want to be a part of the team? Are they energized by the team? Do they take pride in the team? So do they want to be there? And when people want to be there, there's engagement, there's satisfaction, and the team is tight. And the last one is belief. So belief is, does the team believe they can be successful? So if all of you are at work today, do you believe that you're going to make a difference today? Do you believe that you'll accomplish your daily goals or you'll contribute to the overall goals of the business? So do you believe you're going to be successful? And the last one there is process. So how are you in the stages of team development? So I know a lot of you have heard this before, but the stages of team development are like forming, storming, norming, performing. So how does that work? And maybe if the team, disbands, it could be adjourning. So where are you in those stages? And if you're in the stage you don't want to be, how do you get there? So just to review, forming means that the team has come together. So that could either be a new team or that could be an existing team that maybe some of the members have changed. So forming is when people are polite, you're just trying to feel each other out, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to operate. The next stage is storming. So that's if and when there's conflict, how do you manage the conflict? So if there's differences of opinion, is there a productive way to deal with that? The third stage after that is norming, which means that the conflict is over and the team has figured out how it's going to operate, if there's norms or unwritten rules of how it's going to be. And after those rules are there, the last step is performing, where the team meets its goals. So with those stages, by the way, forming, storming, norming, performing, that the team can sort of go back and forth on the continuum if things change, if there's success or failure, but the goal is to try to always have them in performing. So again, if we're thinking of team effectiveness, which is again commitment by the whole team, we're thinking about states and process. We're also thinking about environment and design. So continuing on with commitment, if people are happy and satisfied, this can also mean that your business has a strong culture. So this can also mean that your business has a strong culture. And if we think of the definition of culture, it's as simple as the basic patterns governing how people think and act upon opportunities and problems. So how do people observe and how do they act upon things? So the elements of a strong culture are these things right here. So the first one is artifacts. So artifacts are tangible examples of how people should see and observe things. So some of the examples of this can be like stories, they can be rituals, they can be legends, they can be language. So if we think of artifacts for a minute, so I showed you the example of when I worked in a hotel and the room attendant took the guy's shoe, got it fixed, and returned it to him. So we wanted people to feel empowered. We wanted people to want to make a difference. We wanted people to have caring. So whenever we had orientation, when we onboarded new people, we would always tell them that story. So if you have examples of times that people have done really great things, do you share that every time there's a new employee? If there's a positive review or comment, if you have a staff meeting, like, do you read them out loud and do you recognize people? So those are examples of artifacts, which are tangible things. An artifact that I think is sort of cute based on today, think of yourself for a moment. How many of you, when you were little, did you ask your parents for a drive to school because the weather was bad? And maybe your mom or your dad said to you, when I was your age, I walked to school in 6 feet of snow and I didn't get a drive and I always made it. So that's an example of an artifact or a story that they were trying to use with you. So my parents certainly used that one with me. It wasn't 6 feet of snow, but they would say, I walked to school with snow up to my waist and I never got a drive. You can walk to school. So they're again trying to give you an example of an artifact so you can see observable things to share with people so they can see what the desired behavior is and how you want your team to observe and act upon situations as they occur. The next one you can see is shared values. Shared values is the same thing that we talked about in commitment. So if people believe in the same stuff, if they have the same moral compass, if their definition of right and wrong is the same, there's a higher probability that people will look at things in the same way because you share the same value. So for example, one of my values is I'm a positive person and I sometimes ignore negative information. So if that's considered to be a desirable trait. If people are all optimists, that can certainly change how people look at stuff. And then the last one is shared assumptions. So shared assumptions are, what are your subconscious beliefs based on the past? So shared assumptions are almost like mental models of how you've seen things in the past. So it's like, hey, if something happened before like this and it's happening now, it could be the same. So that's shared assumptions. So these are ways that you can build a culture to allow people to care and to be happy. Also appreciate with this, there's almost like a couple of variables that can impact this. So one would be fit with how you want people to behave in your team. The next could be, does your culture support adaptability? So if things change, does it allow for there to be change? And also, do people care? Do people care? And this is actually my last topic now. And this is just hopefully commitment. If people are happy, will transcend into caring, which of course is the theme. So if we are going to have excellence in product and service, we need for our team to care. And I love that image again, because people are chest pumping. So I can see that people are chest pumping. So let's sort of go through these one by one. And this is actually my last slide here. So in order to have caring, this is the start of a framework. So the first thing would be to communicate your purpose. So articulate to the team, we are competing on service. We are competing on providing memorable experiences to our guests, and you are important in doing that. We need you to be empowered. We need you to care. I'm here as a support to allow you to make a difference. So that's the purpose. So you're articulating, we want to care. Caring is how we're going to compete. Caring is how we're going to differentiate ourselves from the restaurant, the museum, the place down the street. Next one, empower and engage. We've talked about that already. So can we empower the team? And of course, empowering, meaning, self-determination, competence, caring. So do people want it? Is our team engaged? So are they satisfied? So trust, do they share values? Is there justice and support? Are they involved in decisions? So do we have those things? Next thing, allow the ability to go off script. So every customer is unique. So caring is a framework. How you want to provide excellent service is a framework, but it's not an absolute. So if there's a situation where you need to sort of, go off path to try to make a difference, as long as it's reasonable and makes sense and it's seeking a positive outcome, it's okay to bend procedures a little bit if you feel that it's not detrimental and it's going to make a difference. The next one that you can see there as well is build relationships. So in order to care, we need to build relationships with each other. We need to build relationships with our guests. We need to build relationships with the partners down the street, because if we're providing an experience, that experience is within our facility, but it's also, if they're in Nova Scotia for a week, it's all the other businesses that they frequent, they go to, they interact with. So in order to have caring, we need to build relationships with others, which can be the guest partners, each other. And the last one, of course, is we need to listen, we need to connect, and we need to share. So we need to listen to what people are saying. If we're going to care, we need to fully understand. We need to connect, which is like build rapport and relationships, and we need to share. So we need to share our best practices. If we want to create that culture, we need to tell people what we've done well. We need to show, we need to share the stories and the rituals and the legends and culture so that people want to care, people understand, people have examples, people can make a difference. So if we have all of those things, I'm just going to flip back up to the top. So if we have all of those things, that should give your business effectiveness, that should give your team commitment to you and the business, to your guest, and that should also mean success for everyone. So I guess
that's great.
So for those of you who are at the last one, I finished in about 32 minutes. And so I made an effort to make this one a little bit longer.
So we have a good question from Candace. Thanks, Greg. We now have 5 generations working together, which can present a challenge to team building. Any ideas on how to help these teams form?
I think the biggest thing that I would do is I would try to take team building down to values, and I would try to figure out, what do people believe in? And is there a way, oh, look, Lisa wants to answer too. So is there a way that we can build off the shared values that people have? So can we embrace the differences, but try to find commonality to get there? And even if you think of something as simple as a theme of, we want to service the customer well, we want to care, we want to give them an experience. So how does everybody contribute to that in their own way?
Great. Do we have any other questions for Greg?
Thanks, Candace, by the way.
Like everybody's thinking about the impending storm. That was great, Greg.
So the other thing as well is there is the opportunity, I didn't mention this time, but there's also the opportunity for mentorship calls one-on-one with me. If you do have a specific scenario or need assistance or a sounding board, you can certainly, Lynn can help you book those.
Yeah. When budgets are tight, what do you suggest that a team member can give to a guest?
Well, I think things as simple, let's say that it's someone's birthday. Let's say that it's somebody's birthday. I still think there's a nice touch of even just sending up a card, because it's an acknowledgement. So like there's certainly inexpensive things you can do. You could also consider, you look around to see what are the things that you have that you could send. Like, for example, I stayed at a hotel. I was in Texas for work, and I stayed in a hotel, and it was my birthday, and I was staying by myself, and the property sent up to me a card, and they sent me up basically a goldfish in a glass bowl. And I left the goldfish behind, but they just said, happy birthday from the team. We don't want you to be alone on your birthday. Mm-hmm. And they sent me a goldfish and a card. So that goldfish, hopefully that goldfish has a long and healthy life, and that goldfish is in people's rooms all the time. But they sent me a goldfish. And, it just said, hey, happy birthday from the team. We don't want you to be alone on your birthday. And of course, when you're traveling for work and when you're an adult, sometimes you're away on your birthday and sometimes you're by yourself. But it was a nice gesture that happened probably 10 years ago, but I remember it. So I'm not, that's just an example, but are there things that you have that could be a good acknowledgement that also that, people will leave behind?
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't even, that's not very expensive. It doesn't necessarily take much. It's those little things that people remember and talk about. But
now that I think about that, that was really cool.
That was really cool.
I hadn't thought about that in a while, but that was super cool. And it was the thing. And they also had a note, P.S. don't feed the goldfish. We'll take care of that for you.
No, that's very cool.
But it's just like, what are the things that you have?
Yeah.
Like, even think of yourself. So if it's your birthday and you're traveling, like, what kind of acknowledgement do you have? What kind of acknowledgement do you want?
And I think, everybody right now with well, I'll say the end of COVID or whatever, that just that tiny little something means so much, where we've been kind of locked up and away from people.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another question there. It says,
yeah, I've got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Penny, it's for supervisors and manager level. And we can, if you have any other questions, you can give me a call or send me a note. Thanks. Anybody else have a question or thoughts for Greg? That's great. Thanks,
Thank
Terry.
you, Terry.
That's great.
No, but so I put this stuff together over the last 2 weeks. So I knew it in principle, but I put it together over the last 2 weeks. And I was thinking, like, some of the basic fundamentals are, if you have a team, do you articulate what you want? So, like, have you sat down with your team and said, listen, we are selling and experience and caring here. This, like, what does that mean to you? How can you contribute to it? But like, do you articulate to people what you want? And I mean, you know, everyone in Nova Scotia is lovely and people are very hospitable, but do you articulate what you want? And if you don't, maybe that's a good starting point. So it's like, listen, so our goal is to care. We want to compete on customer service. We want to give people positive experiences. Let's start, and then let's go through examples. So think of some of that culture stuff. Let's go through examples of when we did things well. Let's go through some examples of when we didn't, and let's like compare and contrast the differences. How can we be equipped if we observe, you know, clues, signals, etc., that we can really make a difference for people? And like, if you go back to that goldfish, and I'll stop talking about it momentarily, but they only knew it was my birthday because I showed photo ID on the way in. So I didn't tell them, like, you have to present photo ID on the way in. So they read my driver's license
and made note of it. Yeah, which is impressive.
Yeah, like they read it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, how many of you have been busy and you're like, oh my God, like it's my 19th day in a row. I need to go home. I'm sick of this place. I don't have time to like go get the goldfish, clean the bowl and send it upstairs. Like, I would never know the difference.
So somebody's asking, would you consider sharing the mission statement with our employees?
Absolutely.
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 Yeah.
And then maybe even talk about like, what's their part of it. And if you think of organizational commitment again, so one of the components, you know, trust, justice, and support, shared values, employee involvement. So maybe it could be like, listen, this is our mission statement. How do you contribute to it? How could you contribute to it? How could we do it better? Like, get them involved to say, you know, to get them A, to buy in, but B, to really, you know, make a difference and want to do it. And when people do things that align with your mission statement, do you have rewards or even verbal recognition in place to, you know, encourage the behavior that you want?
And you have to set by example too. They have to see that you live and breathe that mission statement. Otherwise it's meaningless.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not do as I say, it's do as I do. It's do as I do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we all have examples of when we had bosses somewhere in our career that the boss would say one thing and do another, but we're not those people.
That's right.
We're tourism professionals and we're amazing. And a lot of you, I just see names in a participant list, but I just feel it in my gut that every single person on this call is amazing.
Well, that's why they're on this call.
And I look forward to you guys like making Nova Scotia the most caring place in the world. And then I'll put an asterisk by that, unless of course you're driving and people will run over their mother to make a yellow light.
Well, thanks everyone. And on behalf of Tie-Ins, I'd like to thank Greg again for reminding us of the importance of, you know, going that extra mile. And we talk about the guests, but it's also for our internal teams as well. This webinar has been recorded. It has been recorded properly this time, and it will upload and be available for early next week. And I'd like to remind all participants of our Tourism Reactivation of Industry program, which offers business guidance and support through expert advisors such as Greg. Please contact any of us here at Tie-Ins and we can tell you how it works and how we can help. And we hope you can join us for the third in this series, taking place on March 11th, which is Revenue Management and Sales Techniques. And we also have Debbie Peveril joining us again on March 3rd to discuss cloud accounting, and registration is still available for that. So thank you all again, and I hope you have a great weekend. See
you later, everybody.
Take care.